Most inventors begin with a sketch, build a prototype, discover what is wrong, and start again. Nikola Tesla claimed he could do something completely different. He could build a machine entirely inside his mind, run it, inspect it, change its parts, and even notice signs of wear before touching a single tool. But that was only one of the unusual patterns that shaped his life. Tesla counted his steps. He repeated ordinary actions until the number was divisible by 3. He disliked pearls, avoided touching other people's hair, worked until his body forced him to stop, and spent his final years caring for pigeons in New York. Some stories about Tesla have grown into legend, but many of his strangest habits were described by Tesla himself in his 1919 autobiography. So this is not a story about a magical inventor. It is the story of a brilliant mind that could imagine the future, but often struggled with ordinary life. First, the images he could not switch off. As a child, Tesla said that certain words immediately produced vivid pictures before his eyes. If someone mentioned an object, he could sometimes see that object so clearly that it seemed to overlap the real room around him. These images were often accompanied by powerful flashes of light. Tesla wrote that the experience could be disturbing because he was not always able to tell immediately whether the image was real or imagined. To escape the unwanted pictures, he developed a mental exercise. He would deliberately replace one image with another, then another, until his mind seemed to travel beyond the places he actually knew. Night after night, young Tesla imagined distant cities, unfamiliar landscapes, and people he had never met. What began as a way to control an uncomfortable experience gradually became one of his greatest creative tools. Second, he built machines before they existed. When Tesla became interested in invention, he used the same intense visualization to design mechanical devices. He claimed that he did not need to begin with models, drawings, or repeated physical experiments. Instead, he assembled every component in his imagination. He changed the construction, corrected weaknesses, and operated the machine mentally. Tesla described these imagined machines as so clear and solid that he could see tiny marks and signs of wear on their surfaces. Only when he could no longer find a fault would he build the real device. According to Tesla, the completed machine usually behaved exactly as he had expected. This mental process reached a dramatic moment in Budapest, in 1882. Tesla was walking through a park with a friend when he suddenly understood how to create a rotating magnetic field. He stopped, picked up a stick, and drew the basic design in the sand. That insight helped lead to the induction motor and the polyphase alternating current system that became central to modern electrical power. Third, everything had to return to 3. Tesla wrote that repeated actions had to be divisible by 3. If they were not, he felt compelled to begin again, even when repeating the process took hours. He counted the steps during his walks. He paid close attention to the number of actions involved in ordinary routines. Later stories often exaggerate this habit into a mysterious worship of the numbers 3, 6, and 9. The documented version is less supernatural and more revealing. Tesla described a powerful internal need for order, repetition, and numerical completion. It did not give him secret access to the universe. But it shows how intensely his mind searched for patterns, even during the most ordinary moments of the day. Fourth, he measured his meals. For most people, a bowl of soup is simply a bowl of soup. For Tesla, eating could become a calculation. He wrote that he estimated the cubic contents of soup plates, coffee cups, and pieces of food. Without completing the calculation, he said the meal felt unenjoyable. Imagine sitting in an elegant dining room, while one of the world's most famous inventors studies the shape of a cup before taking a drink. To everyone else, it may have looked eccentric. To Tesla, measurement appears to have been a way of turning an unpredictable world into something orderly. Numbers were not limited to his laboratory. They followed him to the dinner table. Fifth, pearls, peaches, and other powerful dislikes. Tesla described several unusual sensory aversions. He wrote that the sight of a pearl could produce an intense reaction. Women's earrings disturbed him, although he could appreciate other jewelry depending on its design. He disliked touching other people's hair. He also claimed that peaches and the smell of camphor caused him serious discomfort. At the same time, he was fascinated by crystals. sharp edges, smooth planes, and objects with precise geometric forms. It is tempting to diagnose Tesla from a distance, but that would be irresponsible. What we can say is that Tesla experienced the physical world with unusual intensity. He organized many objects into categories of attraction or rejection. The same sensitivity that made certain materials unbearable may also have contributed to his extraordinary attention to shape, vibration, sound, and light. Sixth, work was not part of his life. Work was his life. As a student, Tesla wrote that he began working at 3 in the morning and continued until 11 at night. He claimed he followed that schedule without Sundays or holidays. His professors became so concerned that they reportedly warned his father that the young man could destroy his health through overwork. Tesla did not slow down when he became a professional inventor. In New York, he spent long periods absorbed in experiments, calculations, lectures, and business meetings. He often treated rest as an interruption rather than a necessity. This intensity helped him move quickly when an idea arrived. But it also pushed him toward repeated exhaustion. Tesla's greatest strength was concentration. His greatest danger was that he did not always know when to stop. Seventh, his senses sometimes became overwhelming. During a period of illness and nervous exhaustion in Budapest, Tesla claimed that his hearing became painfully sensitive. He wrote that he could hear a watch through several rooms. The landing of a fly on a table appeared to sound like a heavy impact. Passing carriages seemed to shake his entire body. He said he placed his bed on rubber supports because vibration made rest difficult. These were Tesla's personal descriptions, not independently measured scientific results. But they reveal how he understood his own mind. Tesla saw himself as an electrical system receiving too much information at once. The future inventor of high-frequency electrical devices felt as though his own nervous system had become an instrument with the sensitivity turned far too high. Eighth, he tried to defeat habits through absolute self-control. Tesla admitted that he had once developed a powerful interest in gambling. He also wrote that he smoked excessively and regularly drank coffee. Rather than gradually reducing these habits, Tesla described abandoning them through force of will. Once he decided that something threatened his control, he wanted to eliminate the desire itself. This became part of his identity. Tesla believed the mind could train the body, and that discipline could transform personality. The same approach that helped him focus on difficult scientific problems also made his life rigid. There was little room for moderation. A habit was either under control, or it had to be removed. Ninth, he understood that science needed a spectacle. Tesla was not always the isolated figure remembered from his later years. During the 1890s, he became one of the most famous inventors in America. He appeared before audiences in formal evening clothing, while electrical discharges filled the stage. Glass tubes glowed without visible wires. High-frequency currents moved through experimental equipment as spectators watched in disbelief. Tesla understood that an invention hidden inside a laboratory could easily be ignored. An invention presented as a glimpse of the future could become unforgettable. His demonstrations combined engineering, theater, and personal branding long before those words were commonly used together. For a time, Tesla was not merely a scientist. He was a scientific celebrity. 10th, he kept trying to build the entire future at once. Tesla rarely thought in small improvements. He imagined complete systems. After helping develop practical alternating current technology, he turned toward wireless communication, remote control, automation, and the transmission of information across enormous distances. At Wardenclyffe on Long Island, Tesla attempted to construct a powerful wireless station. The project was ambitious, expensive, and difficult to explain to investors. Tesla imagined a world in which messages, information, and perhaps electrical energy could move through a global system. Parts of that vision now sound familiar. But his project demanded more money than he could secure. The tower never achieved the future he promised. Tesla's habit of thinking at an enormous scale produced breathtaking ideas. It also made compromise extremely difficult. 11th, he introduced a machine that looked almost alive. In 1898, Tesla demonstrated a small radio-controlled boat at Madison Square Garden. He moved the vessel without a visible cable and controlled its lights and direction from a distance. Some observers struggled to understand what they were seeing. Tesla presented the machine as an early example of what he called teleautomatics. He imagined devices controlled remotely, and, eventually, machines capable of performing increasingly complex actions. The demonstration revealed another recurring Tesla habit. He did not simply invent for the present. He mentally extended each invention into a future system of automation. A small boat inside a demonstration tank was, to Tesla, the beginning of a world filled with intelligent machines. 12. Personal relationships came second to invention. Tesla never married. He sometimes argued that an inventor required total concentration and that family life could interfere with scientific work. It would be too simple to say that he rejected all human connection. Tesla formed friendships, attended social events, and knew prominent writers, engineers, and business figures. But he guarded his independence and increasingly organized his life around work. As the years passed, that choice became more visible. The brilliant public lecturer gradually became a solitary older man, living in hotels and returning, repeatedly, to unfinished ideas. Devotion gave Tesla decades of focused work. It also left him with fewer people nearby when his fame began to fade. 13th, the pigeons of New York. In his later years, Tesla regularly walked through New York to feed pigeons. He cared for injured birds and sometimes brought them into his hotel room. Contemporary accounts recorded his routine of feeding pigeons near the New York Public Library. Tesla became especially attached to a white pigeon that visited him repeatedly. He spoke about the bird with an emotional intensity that surprised people who knew him, mainly as a cold and mathematical inventor. The man who had spent his life studying invisible electrical forces found companionship in a creature most New Yorkers ignored. To outsiders, it looked strange. To Tesla, caring for pigeons offered a connection that required no business negotiation, no investor, and no public performance. 14th, he lived in hotels but never truly settled. Tesla spent many of his New York years living in hotels. Earlier success had brought him attention and money, but later projects consumed resources without producing stable income. He moved between hotels and sometimes left unpaid bills. His reputation remained enormous, yet his financial position became increasingly fragile. This contrast is central to the Tesla story. He could imagine systems that might transform the world, but he often struggled to turn those systems into durable businesses. He could command a stage filled with electricity, yet he had difficulty maintaining the ordinary structure of a secure life. In 1933, he moved into the New Yorker Hotel. He remained there for approximately the final decade of his life. 15th, the final room. By the early 1940s, Tesla was still speaking about future inventions, but the world had changed around him. Large corporations now dominated electrical engineering. New generations of scientists worked in fields Tesla had helped inspire, while many of his own grand projects remained incomplete. On January 7, 1943, Nikola Tesla died in his room at the New Yorker Hotel at the age of 86. The ending appears lonely, but it should not erase the scale of his influence. Tesla's work contributed to alternating current power, induction motors, high-frequency electrical research, wireless control, and early automation. His name later became surrounded by myths because the real story already felt unbelievable. But Tesla did not become important because he counted his steps, disliked pearls, or repeated actions in threes. Those habits were not a secret formula for genius. They were part of the complicated human being behind the inventions. The same mind that could visualize a machine in perfect detail could become trapped by repetition. The same concentration that produced major breakthroughs could push his body toward collapse. The same independence that protected his work could leave him isolated. Nikola Tesla imagined a connected, automated, electrical future long before much of it was practical. But the most fascinating machine he ever described may have been his own mind. A mind capable of illuminating the world while making everyday life extraordinarily difficult. Subscribe for more stories about the strange minds, hidden traits, and remarkable ideas that changed the world.